Dadperfectrevenge. What I heard through that bathroom window made my blood run cold. My own son was planning to rob me, and he was giving this stranger the exact location of where Michelle and I had hidden our life savings. Behind the false wall in the garage, right side about 4 feet up, Nathan was saying through the cracked window. His voice was clinical, detached. Not the desperate son who'd stormed out of my kitchen a week ago, but someone discussing a business transaction. Panels held by magnets, just pull it straight out. There's gotta be 60, maybe 70 grand in there, all cash. I pressed myself against the brick wall of his apartment building, fumbling to start my phone's recording app. My legs had gone numb. This was really happening. Dad doesn't trust banks after his father got wiped out in the 90s, Nathan continued. I could hear him pacing inside, those expensive sneakers squeaking against the floor, the same ones he'd worn when he barged into my house demanding money. I'm Tyler Barnes, 56, years old, and I thought I'd raise my son better than this. Let me back up and tell you how we got here. The coffee mug had hit my kitchen counter harder than I meant to when Nathan burst through my back door without knocking a week earlier. His shirt was wrinkled, and his eyes had that desperate look I'd seen too many times since Michelle passed away 2 years ago. 32 years old and still barging into his dad's house like some teenager who missed curfew. Dad, I need $18,000. No greeting, no explanation, just a demand wrapped up in panic. There's this business opportunity, but I need to move fast. The investment window closes Friday. I set down the electric bill I'd been looking over and studied my boy's face. Nathan had gotten Michelle's dark eyes, but right now they held something my late wife would never have shown. Desperation mixed with calculation. Michelle always said you could tell everything about a person's character by how they asked for help. Nathan wasn't asking. He was demanding. Nathan? I kept my voice level, the way I'd learned to speak after 32 years supervising guys at the Ford plant. You posted photos from that casino in Detroit last weekend. Doesn't look like someone who should be asking for investment money. He started pacing between my kitchen table and the refrigerator, those sneakers squeaking against the tile Michelle had picked out when we remodeled 15 years ago. She'd wanted something that would last, something our grandkids could run across someday. We never got to see those grandkids. That was before I knew about this opportunity, Dad. This is different. This could set me and Rachel up for life. I took off my reading glasses and set them on the stack of bills. Michelle used to tease me about those glasses, said they made me look distinguished, like the $12,000 you needed 6 months ago for that online marketing course, or the $8,000 before that for equipment you were going to flip. Nathan's jaw went tight. The pacing stopped. You're bringing up ancient history while I'm trying to build a future for your daughter-in-law. What kind of grandfather are you going to be? That hit hard, just like he meant it to. Michelle had died without ever holding a grandchild. The grief still caught me some mornings, sharp enough to steal my breath. She'd had so many plans for spoiling grandkids, had even started a little savings account she called her grandmother fund. That money was part of what Nathan wanted to steal. If Rachel's pregnant, that's wonderful news, I said carefully. But I'm not an ATM for whatever scheme you're running this time. Show me this business opportunity. Show me the paperwork. Then we'll talk. His face went red. You want documentation? You want proof your own son is telling the truth? After everything Mom and I did taking care of you when you hurt your back? Your mother took care of me. You visited twice in 3 months. The memory still stung, but facts were facts. Michelle had been there every day. During my recovery, helping me shower, driving me to physical therapy, never once complaining. And I paid for that physical therapy out of pocket, because you convinced me to drop my supplemental insurance to save money. Nathan grabbed the back of the kitchen chair with both hands, knuckles going white. The afternoon light streaming through my window highlighted the veins bulging in his neck. You're sitting on a pile of cash while your family struggles. Mom would be ashamed of you. I stood up slow, my lower back protesting after sitting hunched over paperwork. At 56, I'd learned that people who brought up the dead usually had the weakest arguments. But invoking Michelle's name like that, using her memory as a weapon against me, that crossed a line I didn't even know existed. Your mother would tell you to get a job that pays more than unemployment. She'd tell you that a man provides for his family through work, not by guilting his father. I met his gaze directly. Michelle spent 32 years trying to teach you integrity. She'd be heartbroken to see what you've become. The chair went flying backward, clattering against the stove Michelle had cooked 1,000 family dinners on. "You think you're teaching me some lesson? You selfish old man?" Nathan's voice dropped to something cold and sharp. "I know where you keep that money. I know you don't trust banks after what happened to Grandpa, and I know you go to the gym every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 without fail." The threat hung between us like smoke. Not subtle, not even clever, just raw intimidation from someone who had apparently forgotten I raised him to be better than this. Someone who'd forgotten that his mother had raised him to be better than this. "Nathan, I think you should leave." He stared at me for another 10 seconds, chest heaving, then spun toward the door. It slammed hard enough to rattle the window frames and shake the photo of Michelle. I kept on the kitchen windowsill. Her smiling face looked down at the overturned chair, and I could almost hear her voice. "Tyler? Love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's just enabling." I stood alone in my kitchen, looking at the overturned chair and feeling the weight of 32 years of fatherhood pressing down on my shoulders. The house felt too quiet after Nathan's explosive exit. I righted the fallen chair and noticed a small scuff mark on the stove where it had hit. Michelle's voice echoed in my memory as I traced the mark with my thumb. "Robert, if you bail him out every time, he'll never learn consequences." She'd said that when Nathan was 19 and needed money after wrecking his car street racing. I'd wanted to pay for the repairs. Michelle had insisted he work it off himself. She'd been right then, just as she'd be right now. The next morning, I tried calling Nathan while drinking my coffee from the mug Michelle had bought me for Father's Day 10 years ago. It said, "World's Best Dad" in faded letters. Right then, it felt like a cruel joke. The call went straight to voicemail. I waited an hour and tried again. Nothing. By evening, I'd left 3 messages, each one more worried than the last. "Nathan, let's talk. Whatever's happening, we can work through it." Michelle would have known what to say. She always had a way of reaching Nathan when I couldn't, of finding the right words to cut through his anger and get to the hurt underneath. But Michelle wasn't here, and I was fumbling in the dark. Thursday brought more silence. I checked his social media accounts, something I rarely did, and found nothing posted since our confrontation. No photos, no updates, no sign he existed anywhere in the digital world. Friday afternoon, Rachel called while I was fixing a leaky faucet in the bathroom Michelle and I had remodeled together 5 years ago. She'd insisted on those fancy tiles, said they'd make the place feel like a spa. Her voice sounded strained through my phone speaker. "Tyler, have you heard from Nathan? He left 3 days ago, saying he needed to think, and he won't answer my calls." 3 days? My stomach dropped. I set down my wrench and sat on the edge of the tub. "Rachel, he was here Tuesday asking for money. Said it was for some business deal." A long pause. "What business deal?" "Tyler, Nathan lost his sales job 2 weeks ago. He's been lying about going to work every day, leaving the house in his work clothes and coming back at normal hours. I found out when his boss called looking for him." After hanging up, I sat in that bathroom staring at the phone, surrounded by Michelle's careful tile work and her lavender hand soap that I still couldn't bring myself to replace. Nathan had lied about everything, not just stretched the truth or left out details, but created an entire fake reality. That kind of deception took planning, took a level of coldness I didn't want to believe my son possessed. Michelle's voice echoed in my memory. "Tyler, when people lie about small things, they'll lie about big things." Character isn't situational. By Sunday evening, a week had passed since Nathan's explosive visit. No calls, no texts, no indication he was even alive. Rachel had filed a missing person report, but Detroit police said adults had the right to disappear if they weren't in immediate danger. The officer she spoke with had been polite but clear. Unless there was evidence of foul play, Nathan was free to vanish if he wanted to. I spent that Sunday evening in my garage, looking at the false wall panel Michelle and I had installed together, after my dad lost everything when his bank failed in the 90s. "Never again," she'd said, as we sealed our life savings behind that wall. "This family will never be at the mercy of someone else's mistakes." The money wasn't just cash. It was Michelle's life insurance payout that I couldn't bring myself to deposit, afraid the bank might somehow make it disappear like my father's retirement. It was decades of overtime pay from Ford, $20 bills from side electrical jobs, birthday money from Michelle's parents before they passed. Every dollar represented hours of our lives, sacrifices we'd made, dreams we'd saved toward. Michelle had always been the practical one, Tyler, money isn't just numbers in an account. It's security. It's the difference between having choices and having none. She'd made me promise to protect what we'd built together, to never let anyone take advantage of our hard work. Monday morning, Danny Rodriguez called. Danny had been Nathan's best friend since high school, now working as a mechanic in Dearborn. His voice carried the awkward embarrassment of someone delivering bad news. "Mr. Barnes, I hate to bother you, but have you seen Nathan? He borrowed $2,000 from me last month, said he'd pay me back by now, but his phone's been dead for days. $2,000. I closed my eyes and sank into my recliner, the same one Michelle used to curl up in while reading her romance novels. What did he say he needed it for, Danny? Some investment thing. Said he had inside information on sports betting, that it was a sure thing. Danny's voice got quieter. Look, I know he's had money troubles before, but he seemed really confident about this one. Showed me printouts and everything, sports betting, gambling. After Danny hung up, I made a list of what I knew. Nathan had demanded $18,000 for a fake business opportunity. He'd borrowed $2,000 from his best friend for gambling. He'd lost his job 2 weeks ago and been lying to his wife about it. He'd threatened me with knowledge of my savings location and my gym schedule, and now he'd disappeared completely after I refused to help. That's when the cold certainty settled in my chest, the same feeling I used to get on the Ford assembly line when I could sense a machine was about to break down. Nathan wasn't missing. He was planning something. Tuesday morning arrived gray and drizzly, typical Detroit October weather that reminded me of the morning Michelle got her cancer diagnosis. I got dressed for the gym like usual, grabbed my water bottle and towel, then stopped. If Nathan was watching, if he meant those threats seriously, he'd expect me to follow my routine exactly. 3 o'clock every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 8 years, predictable as sunrise. Michelle had always teased me about that routine. Tyler Barnes, you're like clockwork, she'd say, watching me pack my gym bag. Rain or shine, you'll be on that treadmill at 3 o'clock. She'd been proud of my discipline. Said it reminded her why she'd fallen for a steady man instead of the flashy guys who'd asked her out in high school. Instead of going to the gym, I drove to Nathan's apartment complex on the east side. The place was run down, paint peeling from the siding, parking lot full of cars that had seen better decades. Nathan's Honda was parked in its assigned spot. He was home. I knocked firmly on the door. No answer. Knocked again, louder. Nathan, it's Dad. I know you're upset, but we need to talk. Nothing. The silence felt wrong, deliberate, like someone holding their breath waiting for danger to pass. Walking around the building, I checked the windows. Most had curtains drawn, but the small bathroom window was cracked open about 3 inches. That's when I heard voices drifting through. Nathan's voice, unmistakable, and someone else. Tuesday and Thursday at 3 o'clock, like clockwork, Nathan was saying. His tone was clinical, detached, not the desperate son from a week ago, but someone discussing business. Old man's been doing it for years. And you're absolutely sure about the location? The second voice was deeper, rougher. The voice of someone who'd done this before. Behind the false wall in the garage, right side about 4 feet up. Panels held by magnets, just pull it straight out. There's gotta be 60, maybe 70 grand in there, all cash. Dad doesn't trust banks after his father got wiped out in the 90s. My legs went numb. I pressed myself against the building's brick wall, fumbling to start my phone's recording app. My own son was planning to rob me, giving this stranger the exact details of where Michelle and I had hidden our life savings. Security system? The rough voice asked questions like a professional. None. Dad's old school, thinks living in a good neighborhood is a security enough. Closest neighbor is Mrs. White next door, but she's deaf as a post and minds her own business. I crouched beneath the bathroom window, recording every word. Evidence. I needed evidence that this nightmare was real. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone steady. Keys. Back door keys under the fake rock by the patio. Same spot for 20 years. Victor, I'm telling you, this is the easiest job you'll ever do. In and out in 10 minutes while he's at the gym. Victor. The name meant nothing to me, but his systematic questioning suggested this wasn't his first robbery. This wasn't some desperate friend of Nathan's. This was a career criminal, and my son had brought him into our lives. Thursday then, Victor's voice held finality. This Thursday at 3:15, You park 3 blocks away and keep watch. Text me if anything looks wrong. I go in, grab the cash, out the back door, meet at your place to split it. 60-40, right? Like we agreed. Kid, you're getting 30% for information. I'm taking all the risk here. They argued briefly about percentages, but I barely heard it. The recording app showed 4 minutes of audio. 4 minutes of my son betraying every value Michelle and I had tried to instill in him. 4 minutes of evidence that would send him to prison. I crept away from the window and got back to my truck, hands shaking so bad I could barely start the engine. Thursday. They were planning to rob me this Thursday at 3:15 while I was supposed to be at the gym. 2 days away. By the time I reached home, shock had crystallized into something harder. Nathan had made his choice. He'd chosen Victor over his father, crime over honest work, betrayal over family. Now I would make mine. I spent Tuesday evening researching security cameras online, remembering what Michelle used to say about preparation. Tyler, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. She'd been talking about my job interviews back then, but the principle held. If I was going to protect what we'd built together, I needed to be smarter than Nathan and his criminal friend. Wednesday morning, I drove to Best Buy on 8 Mile and bought a complete surveillance system. 4 wireless cameras, cloud storage, motion detection, smartphone monitoring. The young clerk who helped me seemed surprised when I declined professional installation. Sir, these systems can be tricky to set up properly. We offer same-day installation for just... Son, I've been wiring things for 32 years at Ford. I can handle 4 cameras. I paid cash and left with everything needed to transform my home into a fortress of evidence. The first camera went above the back door, angled to capture anyone entering from. The patio, the magnetic mount attached easily to the door frame, and the Wi-Fi connection established within minutes. Through my phone screen, I could see a crystal clear view of my back door and the fake rock hiding the key. Camera 2 covered the garage interior, focused specifically on the false wall panel where Michelle and I had hidden our money. Anyone reaching for that panel would be recorded in high definition from multiple angles. Camera 3 monitored the living room and main hallway. Camera 4 watched the front entrance. By Wednesday afternoon, every entry point was covered. I tested each camera systematically, walking through my house while watching myself on my phone screen. The image quality was remarkable, clear enough to identify faces, sharp enough to document every detail of a crime in progress. Standing in my garage, looking at the wall that held our life savings, I felt Michelle's presence stronger than I had since her funeral. Wednesday evening, I made the call. I'd hoped never to make. Detroit Police non-emergency line connected me to Detective Jennifer Adams, who agreed to meet Thursday morning at the precinct. Detective Adams was maybe 40, with sharp eyes that suggested she'd seen enough family crimes to make her cynical about human nature. She listened to my entire story without interruption, taking notes as Nathan's recorded voice described my house, layout, security gaps, and daily routine. When the recording finished, she replayed several sections, focusing on the planned date and timeline. Mr. Barnes, this audio clearly establishes conspiracy to commit burglary. Your son and this Victor individual are planning a felony. You're certain this is Nathan's voice? Detective, I've been listening to that voice since he said his first word. I'd recognize it anywhere. She closed her notepad and studied me with professional assessment. What exactly are you proposing? How do you want us to handle this? I want them arrested in the act. I've got cameras covering every angle of my house. Let Victor break in, let him find the money, then arrest both of them with complete evidence. This Victor clearly has prior experience. And Nathan? I paused, feeling the weight of what I was about to say. Nathan needs to learn that actions have consequences before he ruins his life completely. Michelle would have approved, I knew. She'd always believed in tough love, in letting people face the results of their choices. Tyler, she used to say, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let someone hit bottom. That's where they learn to climb back up. Detective Adams spent another hour reviewing procedures, legal considerations, and evidence requirements. By the time I left the station, she'd committed to the operation. Plainclothes officers would be positioned throughout my neighborhood Thursday afternoon. I would maintain my normal gym routine, providing opportunity for the crime to unfold naturally. Mr. Barnes, you understand this, will likely result in serious charges against your son. Conspiracy to commit burglary, possibly additional charges depending on what we find about this Victor person's background. Detective, Nathan made his choice when he decided to treat his father like a target instead of family. Thursday morning moved with terrible slowness. I made breakfast, read the newspaper, cleaned my already spotless kitchen. Every surface reminded me of Michelle, the coffee maker she had insisted on buying, the little herb garden by the window she had tended until the cancer made her too weak. She'd have been heartbroken by Nathan's betrayal, but she'd have supported my decision. Family loyalty had to go both ways. At 2:30, I received a text from Detective Adams. Units in position. Maintain normal routine. At exactly 2:45, I grabbed my gym bag, made sure to lock both doors with deliberate visibility, and backed out of my driveway. In my rearview mirror, my house looked peaceful and vulnerable, exactly the way Victor expected it to appear. I parked at the gym lot facing toward my neighborhood and opened the surveillance app on my phone. All 4 cameras showed empty rooms and quiet stillness. At 3:12, motion detection triggered on the back door camera. A tall man in dark clothing appeared, moving with professional confidence. Victor wore gloves and carried a backpack. He located the fake rock immediately, extracted the key, and let himself into my home within 60 seconds. I speed dialed Detective Adams. He's inside. Back door entry. Roger. We see him on your feed. Maintaining position until he reaches the target area. The garage camera tracked Victor as he moved through my house with Nathan's directions memorized. He didn't waste time looking at electronics or other valuables. Straight to the garage, straight to the false wall panel, pulled it open exactly as Nathan had described. Detective, he's at the money location. He's found it. Copy. All units, move in now. Through my phone. Screen, I watched Victor stuff cash bundles into his backpack, completely unaware that 4 police officers were entering through both doors simultaneously. The garage camera captured the moment he realized he wasn't alone, his head snapping toward the sound of heavy footsteps. Police! Drop everything and show your hands. Victor didn't run or fight, just raised his hands with the resigned professionalism of someone who'd been caught before. Victor Hayes, you're under arrest for burglary in the 1st degree and conspiracy. Detective Adams's voice came through my phone. Suspect in custody. Your son should arrive any moment for phase 2. I drove back to my house, knowing justice was being served, but dreading what came next. Police cars lined my quiet street, their red and blue lights painting the neighborhood in colors of consequence. Victor sat handcuffed in one patrol car, staring straight ahead with blank acceptance. Then Nathan's Honda turned onto my street. I watched my son's expression change from casual confidence to confused terror as he processed the police presence. He parked crooked and climbed out looking like someone walking into their worst nightmare. Detective Adams intercepted him before he reached my driveway. Nathan Barnes, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit burglary and accessory to theft. What? No, there's been a mistake. Nathan's voice cracked like it had when he was 12 and got caught stealing comic books. Dad! Dad! Tell them this is wrong! I stepped into his line of sight. The desperate hope in Nathan's eyes died when he saw my calm expression, my obvious cooperation with the officers putting handcuffs on his wrists. Dad, how could you do this to me? I'm your son. I looked at Nathan, handcuffed and facing prison time for trying to rob his father, and felt something I hadn't expected. Not anger, not satisfaction, but a deep bone-tired sadness for the man he could have been. Nathan, you planned to break into my house and steal everything your mother and I saved over 32 years of marriage. You brought a criminal into our neighborhood, gave him detailed plans of our home. I stepped closer, close enough to see the tears starting in his eyes. You chose Victor over your family. You used your mother's memory as a weapon against me. Now you live with the consequences. I thought you'd never find out. I needed the money, Dad. The casino debt. They were going to... You lied about everything. There was no business opportunity, no crisis except the one you created with your gambling. The patrol car pulled away with Nathan in the back seat, his face pressed against the window, still looking at me with a mixture of disbelief and betrayal. I watched until it disappeared around the corner, then turned to help Detective Adams document the evidence recovered from Victor's backpack. Every dollar I'd saved was there. Every $20 bill from side electrical jobs. Every $100 from Michelle's life insurance that I couldn't bring myself to deposit. All preserved because I'd been willing to treat my son like any other criminal. Preliminary charges look solid, Detective Adams said as we finished the paperwork. Victor Hayes has 3 prior convictions for burglary. He's looking at 5 to 7 years under habitual offender statutes. Your son, being a first-time offender, will probably get 18 to 24 months with possibility of parole in 12 months. 3 days later, Rachel called. Her voice was different, stronger somehow, like she'd found her backbone. Tyler, I wanted you to know I'm filing for divorce. I can't stay married to someone who would rob his own father. She paused. I also wanted to thank you. If you hadn't stopped him, who knows what Nathan would have done next? The gambling addiction was getting worse every day. Rachel, you'll always be family to me. Michelle would have wanted you to know that. She raised a good man, Tyler. I'm sorry her son couldn't follow that example. Friday evening, I disabled the surveillance cameras. Their job was done. Walking to the garage, I removed the false wall panel one last time. $58,000. Every dollar accounted for. Every sacrifice preserved. Standing where Victor had knelt just days earlier, I felt Michelle's presence stronger than I had since her funeral. Her voice echoed in memory. Tyler, love without boundaries isn't love at all. Sometimes the hardest love is the truest love. I sealed the panel back in place and walked upstairs to my living room, where Mrs. White from next door had left a casserole with a note. Tyler, the whole neighborhood supports what you did. Standing up to family when they're wrong takes real courage. Michelle would be proud. At 7 o'clock, I sat in Michelle's favorite chair and looked at her photograph on the side table. 32 years of marriage, and she'd never once seen me waver on a principle that mattered. Michelle, I did what you would have wanted, I said to her smiling face. Our son chose his path, and I chose mine. Sometimes protecting the family means protecting it from itself. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight I could rest, knowing that Michelle's values had won, that honest work was protected, that even the most painful betrayals could be answered with principled action. Sometimes the hardest love is the truest love. That's what Michelle taught me, and that's what I tried to teach Nathan. He just wasn't ready to learn. Real family loyalty isn't about always saying yes. It's about caring enough to say no when someone you love is destroying themselves. The greatest gift you can give your children isn't money or comfort, but the backbone to face consequences and the wisdom to learn from their mistakes.